All right, it is 5:30 p.m. I'd like to thank everyone for coming. I will call to order the June 18, 2018 meeting of the MISD Board of Trustees. As always, we will begin the meeting with a moment of silence, followed by the pledge to the United States flag and the Texas flag. Will you please join me? Thank you. All right. Thanks again for everyone coming this evening. Hope everyone's off to a great summer start. First item on our agenda, item number 2 that is, we're going to recognize the accomplishments of our students this past school year. Ms. Bridges, welcome.
Mr. Davis, Mr. Reddick, and members of the board, it is with great pleasure I introduce to you first the Carver Center Destination Imagination teams who represented Midland ISD at Global Finals. And the person introducing them will be Crystal Anaskavich, who is the lead teacher for Destination Imagination.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having us. We appreciate this time to get to recognize these students. And if I could have the Destination Imagination students come forward and just stand up here at the front. Just right here in front of me. Perfect. All right, just a little bit on Destination Imagination. These students first participated in a regional tournament that was in Lubbock, and you have to place first place in order to move on to state. So both of these teams placed first place there, and at the state tournament, of course, they have a lot more competition, and they are able to move on if they place between first and sixth place. And we have 2 teams. The Disco Dilemma team placed 4th place there, and they also received the highest IC challenge, which is an instant challenge that they don't know about until they go into the room. And the Nautical Navigators, placed 3rd there. So they were able to move on to Global Finals, which is in Knoxville, Tennessee. And they competed, both teams competed against over 70 teams in each of their categories. Those teams are from the United States and also 18 other countries, including China, Pakistan, Qatar, South Korea, Poland, and others. And at the Global Finals tournament, the Disco Dilemma team placed 12th, and they also received the highest IC score there, which was a great accomplishment. The Nautical Navigators placed 23rd there, so both teams did an excellent job representing Midland. On the team, the Disco Dilemma team, we have, if you'll step forward when I call your name, we have Corinne Berry, Lauren Blaylock, Blade Brandon, Stroman Bridges, Carly Gist, Grace Medley, and Kendall Torres. And on the Nautical Navigators team, we have Carson Gonzalez, AJ Hernandez, Nolani Hernandez, Davian Pena, Olivia Romanson, Aubrey Rushton, and Isla Rushton. We have 2 other team managers I would also like to recognize. Kim Connell could not be here tonight, but we also have Tamara Schultz. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, students. Congratulations.
Last month, we had the opportunity to recognize National Merit Commended Scholars and National Merit finalists. I would like to recognize the future of National Merit Scholarship finalists. These are seventh graders who competed in the Duke Talent Search. They were invited because of their STAR scores or their scores that qualified them for one of our programs. We are pleased to have so many students who decided to participate. We had, excuse me just a second. We had 54 who enrolled, 39 who actually tested, 4 who qualified for the Center for Summer Studies, 11 who qualified for the Academy for Summer Studies, 23 who qualified for E-Studies, 7 who qualified for state recognition. If those students would come up here to the front as the DI team did, I will recognize each one of these students for their accomplishments. As I call your name, if you'll step forward. Connor Benson, E-Studies in the Center for Summer Studies. Sawyer Evanstein, E-Studies and the Center for Summer Studies and State Recognition. Madeline Green, E-Studies. Houston Jordan, E-Studies and Academy for Summer Studies. Avery McPherson, E-Studies and the Academy for Summer Studies. Lola Mestas, State Recognition and E-Studies and the Center for Summer Studies. Avery, I missed saying that you were state recognition. I'm sorry. Taylor Prater, E-Studies. Devin Becker was not able to be here tonight. She qualified for E-Studies. Jack Leverett, State Recognition, E-Studies and Academy for Summer Studies. Andrew Medukowski, State Recognition, E-Studies and the Center for Summer Studies. Lillian Smith, State Recognition, E-Studies and Academy for Summer Studies. Sydney Bridges, E-Studies and Academy for Summer Studies. Dustin Brown, E-Studies. Joshua Hernandez, E-Studies and the Academy for Summer Studies. Ricardo Ortiz, E-Studies and Academy for Summer Studies. And Vanessa Padilla, E-Studies. Robert Arziaga, E-Studies and Academy for Summer Studies. And Braden Baylor, E-Studies and Academy for Summer Studies. Did I miss anybody? Okay.
Congratulations, students. We're proud of you. Thanks to all the Destination Imagination competitors who appeared tonight. Thank you for all the parents that supported that effort, and thank you for the teachers that supported it. Congratulations to all the students in the Duke Talent Survey. We're very proud of you. Look forward to great things coming from you in the years ahead also. And thank you for coming this evening. Thank you for your parents, and thank you for the teachers that have helped you. All right. Our next item, we will go on to executive session pursuant to Section 551.074 of the Texas Government Code. I believe this will be a quick executive session, and we will return in just a few minutes. If you'll bear with us, then we'll return back to the agenda. Thank you. I forgot to announce the time when we went into executive session. I hope Ms. Robertson noticed that. We are emerging from executive session at 5:42 p.m. and will now address agenda item number 4, possible appointment of Vice President.
Mr. President, I would make a motion that we name Tommy Bishop as Vice President to replace Karen.
Then I'd second.
All right, motion by Mr. Murray, second by Mr. Kennedy to appoint Tommy Bishop to fill the unexpired vice presidential term of Karen Nicholson, who resigned last month. Any discussion or comments, questions? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All opposed? Mr. Bishop, for some reason, abstained, but otherwise it's unanimous from those voting. Congratulations. All right, next agenda item, district report, bullying update. Ms. Moore, welcome.
Good evening, Board President Davis, members of our Board of Trustees, Superintendent Riddick. Thank you for allowing me time on your agenda this evening. Included in this evening's agenda is a report on Midland ISD's policies and procedures for defining, reporting, investigating, and providing consequences with regard to bullying. The first piece of information that we have for you this evening is a list of the laws in the state of Texas, as well as the board policies that provide guidance to us with regard to bullying. The Texas Education Code, Chapter 37, is the section of the Education Code that provides the roadmap for Texas schools to follow with respect to discipline. It's the basis for the Student Code of Conduct that this board approves on an annual basis. Senate Bill 179, most commonly referred to as David's Law, added language to Chapter 37 that requires school districts to provide a mechanism to students for reporting bullying anonymously. It added cyberbullying to the categories of bullying, and expanded the consequences for bullying to include expulsion and notices to law enforcement. So the first law that's listed in the presentation is the Education Code, and there is a section devoted specifically to bullying. And then David's Law has been included and updated in that language. David's Law has also altered the reporting requirements to include notice to parents of students who have been reported to be victims or potential victims of bullying. Once a school district receives that report, the administrators are required to provide a notice to the parents within 3 business days. An additional piece of your agenda tonight is Update 109 that Ms. Robertson will present to you, and that update includes revisions of board policies FFI Legal and FFI Local to further incorporate this language into our local policies. It is important to note that when you all approved our Student Code of Conduct for school year 2017-2018, the components of David's Law were included and have been practiced throughout this school year. Additionally, we have laws that provide rules and processes for us to follow with regard to student confidentiality. FERPA, which is the acronym for the Federal Education Rights and Privacy Act, is referenced in both Board Policy FL Legal and Board Policy FL Local, and that information restricts what school districts may provide to individuals other than the parent or legal guardian or the student in the event that the student is 18. So it provides the school district with information that we need with regard to what information can be shared and what information included in a student's educational record cannot be shared. So that list would be the board policies that pertain to bullying, as well as the laws in the state of Texas that provide guidance to school districts in our response to allegations of bullying. Our training process with regard to how we provide this information to our campus administrators is outlined in this next slide. Our campus administrators are trained annually, generally on a year-to-year basis. The Student Code of Conduct, which is a reflection of the information in Chapter 37, is updated, and those updates and revisions are included in our Code of Conduct. So once the board has approved our Code of Conduct for that school year, we provide information on the application of those rules to our campus administrators. We additionally train our campus administrators on the board policies and the investigation process that we currently have with regard to defining bullying, the reporting requirements, the investigation process, as well as notification to parents. We also include counselors in our training to ensure that they understand if a student discloses, for example, that he or she is the victim of bullying or just having any sort of trouble, what are the requirements for reporting that to school administrators so that those individuals can investigate and make determinations. Our current bullying investigation process contained within our policies require any district employee to report allegations of bullying directly to the campus principal or assistant principal. Reports made in any format, whether those reports are electronically, made orally, in writing, whether the report is made by a student, by a parent, by an employee, a volunteer, whomever may make the report, in whatever format the report is made. Our current policies require that that report shall be recorded or reduced to writing by the campus principal or the campus assistant principal. And then once that report is reduced to writing, that an investigation be started so that the principal can make a determination as to whether the allegations of bullying meet the definition of bullying and should be provided consequences accordingly, or do not meet the definition of bullying but may perhaps be a general Student Code of Conduct misconduct violation. In the interim, the principal should assign some measures to help ensure that nothing further happens during the investigation. These measures may include additional monitoring by campus staff like teachers or teacher assistants. They may be in the form of additional monitoring perhaps during non-instructional times such as recess or lunch. They may be separating the students. If two students are in the same homeroom class, they may take the students and assign one to a new teacher. But those would be the interim measures that would generally be taken during the investigation. Campus administrators will question the alleged victim, obviously, the alleged bully or perpetrator, any witnesses or any other individuals who may have information and knowledge regarding the report of bullying. The length of the investigation may take days, it may take weeks, depending on the allegation. As I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, when a campus receives a report that a student is being bullied, the campus administration has 3 days to tell that student's parent that the school's received a report of possible bullying. The actual length of the investigation and the determination of whether or not the allegations do in fact meet the definition of bullying varies, just depending on the circumstances. David's Law in Chapter 37 lists it, as well as our board policies, lists the amount of time as a reasonable amount of time. So absent any extenuating circumstances, usually 1 to 2 weeks is about the average length of time for an investigation, but that's not hard and fast. It simply depends upon the situation. And then at the conclusion of the investigation, all parents of the victim, all parents of the possible bully are all notified with regard to the outcome of the investigation. If the investigation confirms that the conduct meets the definition of bullying or cyberbullying, the campus shall take appropriate disciplinary actions aligned with the Student Code of Conduct. The same shall apply in the event that the behavior does not meet the definition of bullying. If the actions are deemed to be misconduct on the part of the student, the campus administrator shall apply the rules outlined in the Student Code of Conduct. If the investigation concludes that bullying occurred and the victim used a reasonable self-defense, the victim shall not be subject to disciplinary action. Within those consequences, there are mitigating factors that must be considered: the age of the student, the disciplinary history of the student, whether or not the student had a full understanding of whether or not his actions or her actions were against the rules. Those are some things that are taken into consideration prior to assigning a consequence. During the course of an investigation, we provide our campus administrators with tools to determine whether or not the action meets the definition of bullying or cyberbullying. And one of those tools is a checklist provided by Texas State University's Texas School Safety Center. It's, that safety center is the clearinghouse established by TEA through which all information and processes, it's a resource that all public schools in Texas rely upon. That organization publishes a bullying checklist, and we've distributed that to our counselors and to our principals and assistant principals to aid them in making a determination as to whether or not an action reported to have taken place does in fact meet the definition of bullying or the definition of cyberbullying. So the bullying checklist, as it's presented in your presentation, is divided up into 3 slides. In reality, it's 1 page, and there are 4 sections, with the last section being a little bit on the tricky side to determine whether it's bullying or possibly cyberbullying. So each one of these sections that are outlined in gray, we would like in order for it to be determined to be bullying, we would need the administrator to determine that at least 1 box is checked in each section. The first section asks the question, is it a one-time thing or a pattern of multiple acts? It could be a one single act that's so significant that it rises to the level of bullying, or it could be a pattern. So we would ask the administrator to make that determination. If it meets one of those criteria, the administrator would move on to the second section. And this one really is to the heart of how we really evaluate whether an action is bullying. Is the act by one or more students directed specifically at another student with the purpose of exploiting an imbalance of power? So if a student just makes a general statement, I don't like people who wear blue suits, that's not specifically directed to anyone. But if a student says, I don't like you because you wear blue suits, that possibly could be. So we would need that box in section 2 to be checked. The third section is, by what means did this act occur? Was it physical contact, verbal expression, written expression, or somehow electronically, perhaps through social media, or perhaps through an email? We have students who interact through gaming systems, and so it would be determined what method was used to commit this act. The fourth section.
Let me stop you there.
Yes,
Let me
sir,
ask a question.
absolutely.
This imbalance of power.
Yes, sir.
Can you elaborate on that? I mean, what if the child hits another child? They're the same age, same grade. Is that considered imbalance of power? One used their fist and the other one didn't.
We would consider both of those actions an imbalance of power, and the way that we would ascertain that is really in this fourth section.
Okay.
If my actions towards you intimidate you, cause you to be in fear, cause you to be afraid that I'm going to hurt you or I'm going to hurt your property, if they put you in fear that someone I know might hurt you or your property or might hurt someone you know, then that would exploit an imbalance of power. That exploitation can occur between students in different social groups, different academic groups, various different
All right.
populations of students.
All right.
So we would move on to the next piece, and there's quite a few, and you don't have to have all of those, but the one that's highlighted is sufficiently severe, persistent, or pervasive enough that the action or threat creates that intimidating environment. It puts me in a position where I am distracted from learning because of the situation going on with the other student. So we would look for at least one of the boxes in that section to be checked as having occurred before we would move on to the next part.
Any one of those, but
Yes, sir.
at least one?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
All right.
Absolutely. Because oftentimes we think it's a pattern, but it could just be simply one thing that could be so severe or pervasive that it could cause that student to feel that way. The next piece is the part that we look to determine whether or not it is bullying that happened on campus or perhaps possibly cyberbullying. So you have to kind of follow along and look with me, if you will. So the very first box was the act committed using any type of electronic communication. If the answer is yes, then we have to say, okay, did it happen outside of a school-sponsored activity, outside of a school-related activity? Because if it's electronic during school hours, it's under our disciplinary authority. But if it was electronic outside of school hours, the next question is, did it interfere with the student's educational opportunities or substantially disrupt the order of our schools? So if it happened electronically and it happened outside of school, but it has a negative impact on the student's ability to learn, it would be considered bullying, which in this case would be cyberbullying. If the act was not committed by any electronic communication device, we would ask the next questions in the gray box. Did it happen at school, on school property, or on school transportation? If that answer is yes, then we would have bullying. So we would have something checked in each section of this analysis tool. Are there any questions about that? It's kind of a tricky, when you look at it all on one page, it's a bit easier to follow. My name's Teresa Moore, and I don't think I said that at the beginning, and I was remiss in doing that. But I, along with Joelle Bracken, who is one of our crisis counselors, are co-chairing a committee that includes community members of our faith-based community, as well as school individuals, to review our policies with regard to bullying, our processes and procedures. We did meet once last week to set our group norms, to discuss the definition of bullying, and we have a second meeting scheduled for July 18th to establish our work and our next steps moving forward. We would like to make a report back to you, a little more comprehensive regarding those first two meetings at your board meeting in August.
I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
Going back to the beginning where we're talking about the laws.
Yes, sir.
So, Federal Education Right to Privacy Act.
Yes, sir.
So what we're saying here is that the federal government's requiring us not to share willy-nilly any information, personal information of children that are possibly involved in a bullying act, correct?
Yes, sir. We're prohibited by federal law, and it's further incorporated into local legal policy, which is equivalent to state law and local policy that puts restrictions on school districts regarding the information we share about students with people other than that student's parents.
Okay. So, as you know, we're trying to be proactive, and this new group, are we going to be still adhering to the law as far as personal information? Where are we going to define that line as a district versus community people that are involved? Where are we going to draw a line and where people can't see that information? Because once it gets out of our control, then that can run pretty wild and rampant.
Please don't interrupt from the audience.
We will follow the law and our board policy as written. We will not disclose information that's prohibited under any circumstance.
Okay. So, so according to the rest of the stuff that we've said that we do, I mean, you feel 100% that we're adhering to our policies?
Yes.
Please don't interrupt. I can't have a public meeting with people interrupting. There's a public forum opportunity that we give people opportunity. And if people don't follow that, then I'll be forced to remove you. I don't want to do that. But we can't have a public meeting, an orderly meeting with people just shouting out from the audience. Ms. Moore, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Can you elaborate, please, on, tell me again what you believe the purpose of this committee to be, or purposes to be?
I believe our purpose is to reflect and evaluate on our process. I believe that there's always an opportunity to grow and improve. I think that through reflection and looking at things from different perspectives, including community, including clergy, including people who are in the field, so to speak, I think doing so will only prove to make us better and make us stronger.
So the overarching purpose, this committee will be reviewing the existing procedures, if you will, policies and procedures of the current bullying policies and procedures at MISD many of which you've reviewed this evening. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And the purpose is in that review to see if any of those policies and procedures can be improved upon after listening to the thoughts of the committee members. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I still have something to add.
All right, I think that's important. All right, one second. Because as you might imagine, I think I'm not the exception to the board. We've received lots of emails, had lots of conversation, lots of meetings, and reviewed lots of Facebook posts regarding this topic. And I have reviewed MISD's policies and procedures, and subject to what the committee comes up with, I don't see any problems in the policies and procedures. What I am persuaded about is that we need to do a far better job of communicating to our parents and to our students what they can do when a bullying event occurs. We can do a far better job, I'm convinced, of setting expectations about what they can expect to receive that's going to happen, the criteria by which that actions may or may not happen, what they can expect to receive by way of information, what they cannot expect to receive by law that we're prohibited from giving them, and also just to be reminded, all of us need to be reminded just what an emotional issue this is for the parents and the students involved, and particularly for the parents who, I would be the first to admit, it's understandable that they might not be the most objective in evaluating the situation, but their concerns are real. They believe in their child. They believe their child's telling them the truth, and that we need to be mindful of just what an emotional issue it is for them, and I'm convinced we could be more empathetic, if nothing else.
Yes, sir.
And so I hope that among the things that the committee will do, that we'll look at it from that perspective, even if there's not something to improve upon, that we do a better job of communicating, listening, and making sure that people understand the process from start to finish.
Yes, sir. And that was discussed in our first meeting and will continue to be on our agenda.
Okay.
Well, I just
Mr.
wanted
Markey.
to add that, we appreciate your time and, bringing this up and giving us a report. There's a lot of matters that come up before the board, and I can only speak for the time I've been here, in a sense, but I feel we've been transparent the whole time, and there's been a lot of public meetings regarding academics and so forth. So this is another one that we're informing the public, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Yes, sir.
I don't have any questions, but something maybe to add to what Mr. Davis said as far as having community members and having a committee and giving those ladies and gentlemen an opportunity to give feedback on what improvements we might have according to our policy. Not to say we don't have guidelines that during your meeting that you might have, but to be open and transparent to listening to what the parents and or the community members are asking. Because a lot of times if we don't share that information, sometimes we read it and we don't understand it. So a lot of times being more open and transparent. I don't understand the job that you're in. It's a tough situation because everybody's not going to be told yes. And I understand that, but all I'm asking is giving those ladies and gentlemen an opportunity to voice their opinion in a professional manner on the way the district need to go as far as our bullying and discipline.
Yes,
So,
Ms. Moore, I'm going to add one thing. I agree with what Mr. Davis said. The one question I wanted, and maybe you said it and I just missed it, and I know we try to do it, but what processes are we going about in training our staff in knowing what's bullying and how they work around bullying so that we know we identify it quick and get onto it?
Yes, sir. We will have sessions at our Elevate 2018 staff development where we will dive more deeply into identifying characteristics of bullying behavior. We'll dive more deeply into our reporting process and ensure that everyone has a deeper understanding of not only the definition, but the investigation process and the reporting requirements as well. So those plans are underway to incorporate that into our back-to-school training, and we will also have ongoing training throughout the school year to make sure everyone has a full understanding.
Okay, and just to reemphasize, that's for the whole staff as they start before the next school year. They'll
Yes,
get
sir.
that training before school starts.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you.
Absolutely.
So is the goal to hopefully complete the work and make a report of recommendations as to policies, procedures, or anything else that constructively improve this before the start of the next school year so that we can try and implement whatever recommendations are made that are approved?
I don't know if we'll have that entire scope done by the August 13 school board meeting, but we do hope to have a running start. We do hope to have some direction on at least identifying areas that can possibly be improved.
So this is just the planned meeting scheduled now. That's that there could be other meetings.
Yes, sir.
And the work continues.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. All right, any other questions, comments? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
Thank you.
everyone that's serving on the committee. We appreciate your time and effort on this. All right, speaking of public forum, it's now time for public forum. And we have 3 persons who have signed up to speak to the board this evening. The first is Mr. Chris Gafford. His topic is Political Correctness Guardian Program. Mr. Gafford, welcome.
Thank you. I agree, need to do a little better communicating about that bullying policy. It sounds great. Policy sounds great and would probably be super effective if only we were following it. There's a whole group of ladies over here that has proof that we're not. Nonetheless, I started coming here to see y'all every month last August because Mr. Riddick and Mr. Van Hooser and all their wisdom decided to ban the playing of Dixie over at Lee High School in the name of safety. I don't think it was safety, I think it was political correctness. Since then, that was at a time where there was lots of racial tension in the country. Since then, that has eased. No longer statues being torn down, no longer race riots happening. All the risks supposedly involved with that song are gone. So if the banning of Dixie truly was about safety at the time, then it's time to reinstate it and maybe take a real step towards safety, like the Guardian program that arms teachers. MISD claims to put safety first, student safety first. Matter of fact, Mr. Riddick wrote a full article in the Reporter-Telegram yesterday. A quote from there is, "Safety of our students is top priority." I don't believe that. I think image is your top priority. I think image is MISD's top priority, and that's the reason for the PC culture we got. If safety truly was number one, we wouldn't waste our time with which songs the bands play. If it truly were number one, we'd be talking about arming faculty members. To date, 217 school districts in Texas have adopted the Guardian program or something similar. That's where they arm teachers, train them, and so on. Several of those districts are right here in the Permian Basin. Yet MISD hasn't even begun that conversation. You hadn't even mentioned it, hadn't brought it up. We've mentioned it, the parents have, y'all haven't. So it's time to kind of put your actions where your words are. It's time to put down your destructive and very dangerous political correctness and pick up the cause of actually protecting students. Let's quit talking about it. Quit talking about, oh, we take safety first, and maybe we'll not play this song because that'll be safer. Maybe we'll put together this committee because that might make them safer. Let's actually do something about it. Censoring the band isn't doing anything for it. I believe that this Guardian program or arming the teachers is necessary. You've already had 3 guns taken out of schools this year, at least 3, among other issues. It's just a matter of time. And then everybody's going to be saying, man, we should have done something about that. And I don't want to have to come up here and say, I told you so. I believe that y'all's reelection to the board is probably going to depend on this. So you should probably start visiting that subject sooner rather than later. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gafford. Next up, Mr. McAfee. If you have anything to add this evening, welcome.
Thank you, sir, and good evening to the board, to everyone in attendance. I'm here speaking on behalf of the community as a person with 50 years in education, retired. And I'm not going to address anything that's been brought forward. Well, no, I'll take that back. I am going to address something. I was so proud to be able to sit back there a few minutes ago at the initial start of this particular meeting to see all those young people who were recognized for significant achievements here in Midland ISD. That's my love, that's my dream, is to see students recognized for doing good things, great things. And it is so wonderful. As a parent, I know I've sat where they're sitting now and watched some of mine receive some of the same accolades. But my only request would be is that, you know, you can get with the Midland Reporter Telegram. I know they have an education section every Monday, but usually it's identifying educators, career educators. I have nothing against that, but maybe add a page or 2 that would recognize students making significant achievements in the junior highs or the secondaries, but also concentrate some on the elementary. Many times I see a little section every now and then recognizing students in college, this, that, and the other, but very rarely do you see when we get them when they're young. And as the old biblical passage says, train up a child in the way it should go. And then if you recognize that child, they won't get from it. But it also causes other students to emulate what these other children are receiving from their peers, from the community, etc. And that's just my concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McAfee. Lastly, we have Leslie Curtis. Ms. Curtis, her topic is cameras for security, cameras for special education classes. Ms. Curtis, welcome.
Hi, thank you. I would like the school board to consider the immediate installation of security cameras into all special education classrooms prior to the start of the 2018-2019 school year is mandated by Senate Bill 507, and/or provide written information to the parents that they have the right to request these cameras for their children's classrooms. My request is due to an incident involving neglect and improper use of physical force by a teacher and teacher's aide respectively to my mentally challenged special needs son who cannot speak up for himself. We would also request that the district initiate a zero-tolerance bullying policy, which would include all district employees as well as students. How can we expect our students to act in a respectful manner when a professional can be seen moving a special needs child who is clearly in distress and curled up in a ball on the floor with her foot multiple times as if he were nothing more than trash. Not only that, but this aide and her supervising teacher are staring at their cell phones the entire time. And to top this incident off, it happened to be captured on video, reported to the principal with a witness statement completed, with no visible consequences seen to either of these employees for this unacceptable behavior for 2 weeks. With that being said, we would also like to see increased discipline for any administrator who fails to act ethically while attempting to cover up these incidents, rather than inform the students' parents after receiving an official report and video documentation. My final question is why? Why is our superintendent so inaccessible? He was alerted to this situation. He received multiple emails concerning the safety of the student, yet it is apparently impossible to get into his office for a meeting. I ask the school board to please review this current situation. In conclusion, I ask all of you to think of your own parenting styles and how you encourage your children to come to you when your child is scared or feeling threatened. And now I want you to think of a child that cannot vocalize that fear, who cannot vocalize mistreatment, and who cannot vocalize injustice, yet that just keeps smiling because he believes his mom and dad will see to it that injustices like this are eliminated. So again, I ask you for help in getting these security cameras installed, not only for my son, but for all the special needs students in MISD. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Curtis. All right. Public hearing, budget and tax rate. It is now 6:19 p.m. and I will call to order the public hearing on MISD budget and tax rate for the upcoming school year. Ms. Moss, the information begins on page 27 of our board packet. And to members of the audience, following Mrs. Moss' presentation that will provide information that may be of interest to you, then you'll have the opportunity to address the board with any comments or questions you might have following her presentation. That'll also be part of this public hearing. Ms. Moss, welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, Board of Trustees, and Mr. Riddick. We have just a series of slides here for the community to give them some information on our budget for the 18-19 fiscal year and the tax rate that we are proposing for the 18-19 fiscal year. The Board of Trustees have seen most of this information during the 3 budget workshops that we reviewed, but we wanted to report out to the community so that they could have the information as well. On our first slide here, a school district's budget should provide for student success. Budget preparation process used to complete the 18-19 proposed budget takes into consideration MISD's mission statement and the goals of the Board of Trustees. These goals are listed on the screen and are accessible on the district's website. Our certified estimates were received from the Midland Central Appraisal District in late April. Based on the data provided and district estimates, property values are estimated to increase by 12.5% over current year values. The estimated value received in April of 2017 was $18.6 billion. At certification in July of 2017, that amount increased to $20.9 billion. The estimate received in late April of 2018 was $21.5 billion, and we are estimating that the certified value be closer to $22.9 million, taking protests and new property growth into consideration when we receive the certified values in July of this year. Once we receive those certified values in July, we will recalculate the impact on the budget and report out to the Board of Trustees at that time. The superintendent and board will determine what action to take to amend the budget and which priorities to focus on if the new calculation results in additional funding. The estimated tax rate for 2018-19 is a total of $1.12. This includes an M&O rate of $1.04 and an INS rate of 8 cents. The proposed INS rate is reduced by 3/4 of a penny for the 18-19 fiscal year. This is primarily the result of our Board of Trustees' approval of refunding funds in the fall of 2017. The district continues to work with our financial advisor to reduce the tax burden on our community when possible. The Board of Trustees, again, as I stated, participated in 3 budget workshops in the compilation of the proposed budget. During the budget workshops, several superintendent and board priorities were discussed. The Tier 1 priorities are listed on the slide, and they were selected and are included in the 2018-19 budget. That's kind of a small print, so I will go over those. A 2% pay increase for administrative, clerical, and instructional support staff. A $50,000 minimum teacher pay is included. A 2% pay increase for auxiliary staff. 31 additional teachers are in the budget based on our anticipation of extra students for next year. We're including 2 teachers, behavioral therapists that are non-special education teachers, 9 balanced literacy teachers, and 2 additional safety officers. We're also including the purchase of 2 additional school buses. Our district is funded based on average daily attendance, or what we refer to as ADA. ADA is a count of students in average daily attendance. This is the basic figure that determines how much revenue a school district receives from the state on a per pupil basis. Administration is projecting ADA of $24,234 for the 18-19 budget. This is a 2.5% increase over the 2017-18 school year. ADA fluctuates during the year, and the budget is adjusted accordingly. Chapter 41 is commonly known as recapture or Robin Hood. It is part of the Texas Education Code governing school funding that was enacted by the legislature in an attempt to equalize wealth for education funding among school districts in Texas. It is intended to recapture local tax dollars from property-rich districts and redistribute the funds to property-poor districts. Midland ISD became a paying Chapter 41 district in the 13-14 school year, and as of the fiscal year ending 2017, the state has recaptured $142 million in tax dollars from our district. Chapter 41 recapture means that there are fewer tax dollars available for MISD's maintenance and operations budget. This budget funds instructional programs, salaries, and general operating expenses. It is important to note that the tax rate has no effect on MISD's Chapter 41 status. Only the property values and the number of students attending school are considered in that calculation. At the end of the fiscal year 2017, MISD was number 7 on the list of top 10 recapture districts in the state, and you'll see that MISD is highlighted in blue with the $48 million recapture estimate at the time. This chart depicts the state funding estimate for 2018-19. We're estimating that state revenue of slightly more than $17 million. To put this in context, the state will send us approximately $17 million. However, we estimate that recapture from the district will be approximately $56.8 million in next year's budget. These amounts are based on our estimate of a 2.5% increase in average daily attendance and a 12.5% increase in taxable values. %92 of the operating fund revenue is generated locally, or that equates to $232 million. 7%, or $16.9 million, is generated by the state formula calculation, and approximately 1%, or $2.2 million, is estimated to be received in federal funding for next year. And that's simply the federal funding located in the general operating budget. The board is required to adopt the budget at the functional level. This chart shows the percentages of the total budget spent on each category. Almost 47% of the budget is spent for instructional purposes. The second largest percentage of the budget is spent on Chapter 41 recapture. Almost 23% of the general operating budget is sent to the state. And this final slide is a summary of the proposed budgets for 18-19 that the Board of Trustees is required to adopt. We will be asking that later on in the meeting tonight. The debt service fund budget is proposed with a $2.5 million increase to fund balance. A fund balance is necessary on the debt service side for future bond refunding, as well as the possibility of prepaying debt in the future. Administration has consulted with the district's financial advisor in determining the debt service fund budget calculation. And we are glad to report that we are presenting a balanced budget for both the general operating fund and the food service fund. Mr. Davis, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Moss. Any questions for Ms. Moss?
I don't have any questions for you. I would just like to remind our community that this recapture process is really a process that demands communities like ours to finance public education. I wish that people would get angry over that fact and go to the polls and make a difference. I know personally as a board member, I'm fed up and tired of funding public education from our community.
All right. All right, thank you, Ms. Moss. As you indicated, we have discussed these items in at least 3 public meetings on workshops for the purpose, but we're presenting this again as a summary and also for the community's benefit who haven't been able to attend those budget workshops. Now the podium is open to any questions or comments or opinions from the audience regarding this proposed budget information. All right. We will conclude the hearing at 6:30 p.m., the public hearing on the proposed budget and tax rate. Now we will move to our consent agenda. 8A, board meeting minutes on page 40 of our board packet. SHAC members, page 46 of our board packet. Financials, page 59. Monthly expenditures, page 72. Central Texas Purchasing Alliance, Interlocal Agreement and Resolution, page 106. Child Nutrition Services Bid Tabulations, page 125. Child Nutrition Services Warehouse Bid, page 133. Child Nutrition Services Direct Delivery Bid, page 149. Elementary Furniture Replacement, page 158. Contracts over $100,000, page 160. Board meeting schedule, page 167. Personnel appointments, page 169. CPC local, page 181. Local policy revisions in TASB Update 109, page 184. And local policy revisions in TASB Update number 110 on page 254 of our board packet. Board members, do any of those consent agenda items need to be pulled for any reason?
Trustee Davis, there's one item that we pulled from administration, which is the SHAC membership. The SHAC committee wants to work through that committee, wants to work through that membership and represent that membership back at a later meeting, which they may determine could be as late as October. But they want to, the new chair would like to do the work around that.
Okay, you're referring to consent agenda item 8B, SHAC members on page 46, all right? It'll be pulled.
And then you have 2 items that were presented to board for walk-in. one on furniture and one on personnel.
I've got a question for you on the shack on the 46th page. And I know that you're still working on it, but
Well, before we get to that, let's do the ones that we don't have questions for that aren't being pulled. Now, your last two items, you're just noting that there are additional items that are in hard copies in front of us regarding those two consent items. All right. All right, board, other than 8B, are there any other items that should be pulled for any reason from this consent list? All right, then hearing no further items being pulled, then except for agenda item 8B, all the remaining consent agenda items will be deemed approved by consent. All right, Mr. Marquez, go.
on the recommendation of the counselors, that could change, obviously you're gonna work on it. But it says counselors to 12, increase number of crisis counselors to 12. Was that, I know you're gonna pull it, so it can change, but
Well, I would remind you, Mr. Marquez, we have the SHAC report itself is agenda item 9E. This consent agenda item only had to do with the SHAC members themselves. Correct? Isn't that correct? Yeah. So we're going to hear all about it in 9.
okay.
So there'll be opportunity to ask questions then.
Okay, I'll hold my question. Go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Now turning to our district reports. Agenda 9A, board goals. First, the constraint progress measure 1.1. Mr. Jones, this is on page 261 of our packet.
We're actually going to go with GPM 1.1, GPM 1.3, and then we will close with CPM.
All right, let's go with goal progress measure 1.1 first. Ms. Rivera, welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Davis, Mr. Riddick, Board of Trustees. Thank you for the opportunity to continue to report out on our goal progress measures through Lone Star Governance. I'm here tonight to report on goal progress measure 1.1. This is our K through 2 students reading on or above grade level using iStation, as measured by iStation. Our annual report tonight is end of year 17-18. If you notice, our goal for end of 18-19 was 69. We're actually coming in at 68, which is 1 point below the goal. Although that is 1 point below the goal, I'm proud of the work because it did take adult behavior to change. We feel like to achieve the 68. Now that we have the practice in place of really training up our iStation experts at the campus level, we do feel like we'll continue to make great strides in K through 2 using iStation. So 1 point below where we should be, based on the goal setting we did last year. Any questions regarding 1.1?
So, obviously that was the previous year was a setting when we worked through all that, the recommendations from the staff that came up. I mean, just in overall, how do y'all feel that with the measures that you're using, do y'all still feel pretty solid about using iStation and so forth to come up with those determinations?
Yes, sir, we do. We are anxious to get in a workshop setting and work through some AE local changes for that annual one time that we can actually look at modifying and adapting some language we put in. Although we feel confident about the K through 2 iStation measurement as reading on or above grade level. We're confident with this measure.
Well, great.
Yeah. Well, I would like it even better if we had met or exceeded the goal. I am very excited about the progress. As our goals state, we began with a baseline of 57% passing this standard. And now we've gone from 57 to 68% from fall of 2016 to the end of the school year 2018. So I am excited about the progress. I believe that adult behaviors are changing and that they will continue to have to change further and progress further in order for us to reach the remaining goals that we have for the next 2 school years. But I congratulate you and everyone, the teachers and everyone that participated in making this progress. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate
This is campus-based work that our campuses are really working diligently to meet these board goals, and our kids are improving. And that's you know, when the rubber hits the road, that's what we want, is higher achievement for our students. And so while we're not there, and we acknowledge that, we are excited about the growth that we've made.
Well, and I'm very impressed because a year and a half ago, you know, we all sit around and collaborated together, which was highly important. And for us to set a goal, you know, and come close to meeting it, I'm hoping our community says that, realizes the amount of work and effort that's gone into doing that, because from what I'm aware of, nobody else has done it. So we're you know, we're cutting a new path here per se. So, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, now turning to measure 1.3, Ms. Miller.
Thank you, Board
Welcome.
President, trustees, and Superintendent. I'm here to review the results of Goal Progress Measure 1.3, which, as you will recall, relates to the progress of our pre-K population. We're looking at the percentage of pre-K students who are producing letter sounds on a district checkpoint. The target for GPM was 75% of the pre-K students. Thank you kindly. And we also did not meet this goal. We hit it at 74% of our students meeting this goal. This equates to about 9 students out of the number that we tested not reaching the percentage that we needed them to. We have, thankfully, the nice thing about doing these kinds of progress measures is that it allows us to look at our program carefully and make any adjustments that we need to in the coming year. And we have 2 action steps that we've identified. We've always communicated clearly with the principals and the teachers where they stand in terms of their class progress, but we need to ensure that we're making individual plans of teacher support to ensure that we can meet this goal the next year round. We're also purchasing some new training materials, providing initial training, and providing a considerable follow-up to use a kinesthetic approach to teaching these letter names and sounds. So we're hopeful that we anticipate that this will improve our scores for the following year. Do you have any questions or concerns?
Well, the same comments, although maybe a little less enthusiastic. I'm glad to see progress. But I think that based on the information that the teaching learning staff provided us, we thought that it was realistic to do a 3% increase in year 1 and then ramp it up to 5 and 5 after that. So I hope that all the measures that you just identified that seek to improve that so that we can reach those goals are reached, and congratulate those on the progress and look for far bigger gains next year.
Thank you. Our
based on what
pre-K
you're
folks are working hard on that.
Thank you. All right, and then we'll have constraint progress measure 1.1. Mr. Jones, welcome.
Board President, Mr. Davis, trustees, thank you for allowing us to present this information to you, bringing closure to the GPMs and that we've shared, bringing closure to the CPM. This is a constraint measure that we've had many discussions around and about, and we made adjustments to it last time we met. But this is specific to CPM 1.1 and all 5 elements of the PLC implementation rubric. At least 80% of the teams at each campus will achieve or maintain refinement or internalized, and remaining teams will show annual growth by the end of school year 2020. As you know, we have completed our 3rd year of a 3-year phase-in of professional learning communities. Our first cohort included 18 of our schools, our 2nd year included 9, and we close out this year training up the remainder 11 campuses. I do want you to know that training will continue to ensure our instructional process remains sharp and on an upward trend. Again, in respect to this constraint measure, we're using the PLC implementation rubric. You should have a copy of that in your packet. The rubric has 5 elements included, and of course, the scale includes literal, refinement, and internalized. Literal, refinement, and internalized. I want you to know that all campus teams completed an early fall evaluation. Early reporting did give campuses and district leadership an opportunity to work strategically with these teams to ensure full implementation and progress toward refinement and internalize. However, end of year evaluation indicates that we did meet the goal of 18, and we had actually 19 of our schools achieve, meet this constraint progress measure. And the 2017-18 goal that was set was 18 schools. It continues to be a work in progress in this respect as new team members come on board, new team members fall off, and we will continue to work through this process to reach the goal for 18-19 of 27.
So I looked at, I've looked at the people that are leaving and retiring, and, we talked about that. That's part of that process that you got a team together, and then somebody leaves. And then, so I looked at it. I didn't have time to do to try to do some type of calculation as to how many people left versus, percentage-wise. But do you hear anything, just globally, do you hear any feedback that does hurt the teams? I know it does, but do you feel that people are sharing that with you as far as?
I think we are continually making adjustments in respect to our instructional process, and every time a new member comes on board, if they're not bringing that POC experience from another district, we're having to make adjustments accordingly and get that new team member caught up. So I think every year we will continue to see that work as ongoing at the campus level, and you will continue to see POC not come to a final stage because it's going to be continuous every year to make sure we keep that pencil sharp in respect to POC implementation.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Jones, you may not have the date yet, but do you know when that review of the Go Progress Measures meeting is going to be?
So we talked about that today during our executive team meeting. We don't have a date solidified yet, but we are looking at August. We want to make sure that we have all of our data back from the state in regard to STAR performance so that we have good information to lead with.
I think, and I asked because as we've gone through this process too, this was new for us as well, and we appreciate the fact that the teaching and learning team kind of walked us through that process. I want to make sure that we are very upfront about when that meeting is scheduled, because I think there's teachers throughout our district that we could get valuable input from, and I think that when we did this last summer, when we went through this work, we were very open to the room to say, what do you think about this? What are your suggestions? And I would like to have our teachers be involved as much as possible at their wishes. If they want to be a part of it, come be a part of the process and listen in and know so that they know we're trying to work to do what's best for the school district with their input.
Thank you for sharing that out. We definitely want to be transparent in the work. We actually had a work session with principals a month or two ago around, let's say, the testing calendar. So we're seeking as much input from the campuses as we can as we drive this work. Our leadership team did meet, was it last week, I believe, or earlier this week? Was today Tuesday? Maybe yesterday on, I'm getting my dates mixed up, working through some of the board goals, constraints, and GPMs so that we have some idea where we stand and make recommendations to you as we prepare for that workshop in August.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Are you able to maintain the momentum of your work, especially when new hirees are introduced into the process?
Yes, sir, if I'm understanding your question, yes, sir. It's, as I said before, it's always a work in progress, and it really depends on the individual that's becoming a new member of the team, what experiences they bring to the table, and that lets us know what type of professional development is involved in getting them up to speed and in creating and maintaining that momentum.
Thank you.
And Mr. Murray, to your question earlier, one of the things that I've done is as I've visited campuses, I've given feedback to the teaching and learning team based on a number of the factors that we have as GPMs and CPMs. So they're able to coalesce that and jump into the work that they just had in their leadership meeting based on opportunity to teach and opportunity to test and gather information. Are we out of balance around that particular aspect? So teachers feel that they're able to get to the instructional part that really launches students, and it doesn't feel so test prep heavy. And so that's one aspect that the team is addressing based on feedback that I've received from principals and from teachers throughout the district.
We do bring teachers in for summer work to assist us in developing the assessments for the following year. And I do know we have one teacher very excited about reducing the number of assessments for our elementary teams. We're moving from 6-week assessments to 9-week assessments, and we're already doing that at the secondary level.
And thank you for that. I appreciate the feedback on that, because I think it's important, because we do talk about being one team. And so to get the classroom, that voice being heard to the administrators, to the school board, so we can all work together to make what's best, I think that's great. So I appreciate what you say, Mr. Riddick, and the fact that we are addressing those concerns.
Yeah, we clearly welcome all those opportunities for improvement, because clearly at the core of the professional learning community is to empower teachers to decide how to teach, how to assess, what to do when a child gets it, what to do when a child doesn't get it. And contrary to some people's opinion, it's been you and other members of central office that have championed this change in our school district. We have certainly embraced it. We believe that's at the core of improving this district, and that's why we've made it a constrained progress measure for us to keep track of this information. And we're glad to hear that you're seeking ways to get teacher input, because that's what, at its core, what PLC is all about.
I would love to stand here and report to you that we met all two GPMs and the one CPM. It is our goal to meet or exceed all of the expectations and goals that you have set for us. But there's nothing wrong with creating stretch goals and failing forward. And we feel like we are making good progress. We have good traction moving forward, and there's nothing wrong with failing forward as long as we continue to improve student outcomes.
Quick question on, so, we have obviously new people coming in the district through the hiring process. So is there a process to get everybody involved to know that, or educate them in the Lone Star governance work, that from the expectation part and where we're trying to go with that?
So as a school district, I can't say that we have a direct onboarding process for every teacher to go through the Lone Star governance process, but I can speak to the campuses and how they do review all board goals, all GPMs and CPMs in respect to the work. And then that work is embedded not only in the district improvement plan, but also the campus improvement plans.
So if I can address something real quick around that, our HR department led by Executive Director Woodrow Bailey and I have talked through an onboarding that our teachers and staff, period, go through, but specifically our teachers, staff members and administration, that they go through as a process when they come into the district. So it's just not about benefits and an ID, but what are all the elements we want people to understand when they come in, so they have a dynamic of culture. So that goes from the Midland Values Project, understanding some of those core values, as well as Lone Star governance. So they have not the in-depth, but they have some working knowledge around those elements. So when they get to the campus, it's not the first time that they're hearing what those expectations are.
Any other questions, comments? All right. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, next, our financial update. Ms. Moss, you're back up. Welcome again.
Thank you. Okay, I just want to give you a brief update on the fiscal year 27-18 budget. We ended the month of May with a balance of $131 million in cash and short-term investments. Our interest rates continue to increase, which is an excellent thing. We gained interest of $213,000 for the month compared to $84,000 for the month the same period last year. We have already seen over a 100% increase in interest compared to the previous year. Later, we'll ask you to amend the budget for the 2017-18 year. That will be the final amendment. We changed our fiscal year, so June 30th, this is our last month in that fiscal year. The original budget was adopted in August of 2017 with an excess of $5.3 million. In addition to this excess amount, the budgeted expenditure amount for Chapter 41 recapture is estimated to be reduced by approximately $5 million. In the fall of 2017, the board approved the fiscal year change for the district, which, as I said, will end on June 30th, resulting in only a 10-month reporting period. This will cause a reduction in expenditures being processed within the 17-18 fiscal year and a inflation of the fund balance at this time. We have recognized 99% of budgeted local property tax revenue for both the general operating and debt service. We've received $215 million for general operating and $18 million for debt service has been received as of May 31st. We have made 5 Chapter 41 payments so far, totaling $29.3 million, and we have 2 remaining due to the state for the month of July and August. For the 2018-19 proposed budget, again, we'll be asking you to adopt that budget later tonight. We presented an overview of the budget and tax rate during the public hearing, but we would like to share some additional information in regards to the proposed budget. The district implemented new budgeting processes and procedures for the 18-19 compilation. We started out with presenting the board with a budget calendar back in the fall for this process. Mr. Riddick then approved the implementation of a hybrid form of zero-based budgeting. This allowed for our campuses, departments, and budget managers. It gave them an opportunity to assess what they needed to be successful for next year's budget. We asked them to evaluate what their needs were presently and take into consideration budget cuts and restraints from previous years. We wanted to know what they needed now to be effective, efficient, and to contribute to the success of our students and our staff. We've made every attempt to be transparent with the board during this process. We held budget workshops in March, April, and May with our trustees. We wanted to keep you informed each step of the way in building this budget. Thank you to the Board of Trustees and our superintendent for your participation and your feedback in this process. I know it was fairly new the way we did things this year, but we appreciate that. Building a budget takes a team. It's not about one individual. It's a team of individuals working together. I applaud my financial services team. I've asked a lot of them. They've done a lot of work over the last several months to get us to this point. We have implemented many work systems this year, and we will continue to streamline processes to ensure that process is efficient. Thank you to the MISD cabinet members, the executive team staff, campus administration and staff, department budget managers. They've all played a valuable role in this process in getting the budget to where it is. And then just a little information on our Skyward software implementation. Financial Services is now working in a live database with the Skyward software. A consultant will be on site this week and all of next week. They'll be working with the payroll department. The focus will be on processing that first payroll in the new software. And they will also be training the accounting department, purchasing department, and human resources department within the next 2 weeks.
Just got a quick question. Mm-hmm. The recapture, and you might have mentioned this before, and I can't remember, but since we're starting July 1st now, did that date affect the recapture? Did we move it up, or?
It doesn't affect it as far as the payments that we make. The payment that we make in July and in August will be for the 17-18 fiscal year. So we'll just have an accounting entry to make to accrue those back to the 17-18 fiscal year.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Moss, I think I can safely speak on behalf of the board. We are very grateful for all the changes in the budgeting process that you and your financial services team and Orlando Riddick championed this year. We're excited about the outcome of those results. We're grateful for all those that participated, particularly at the campus level, for them to take a fresh and new look at all that they do and prioritize. And we're excited you're here, and we're excited about the budget process that you've instituted for our district. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Good. All right, 9C, Innovation Update, System of Great Schools. Ms. Kale.
President Davis, Ms. Kale is actually a System of Great Schools Summit hosted by the Texas Education Agency. She arrived Sunday, and I'll join them tomorrow. A couple of updates that you have for innovation. In your packet, you have a team trip that went to Denver Public Schools to review their work around the System of Great Schools. They're 10 years into that work, and we wanted to see what our work here in Midland was like in comparison to Denver Public Schools. Looking at their efforts of 10 years, I would tell you that the work that we've done in the last 11 months has put us probably in their year 3 or 4 of what startup that they've done. A lot of good lessons learned through their work, and we're able to introduce that into our practice currently. We also sent a team to Phoenix to have time and dialogue with legacy schools. So it gave our team an opportunity, a second team, to go to Arizona to talk and work with legacy in regards to their implementation of their practice and program there in Arizona, and what that could look like as a partnership with us here in Midland in the 1920 school year, and what we might need to do to have further dialogue through that work. Pleased to say, in phone calls with Legacy, we are progressing pretty rapidly around an opportunity to do an in-district partnership with them in the 1920 school year.
Yes, we receive reports in our packet. Those are very encouraging. Glad you're having dialogues with Denver and getting the benefit of what they do right and what they did wrong and want us not to repeat doing it here, as well as investigating in person the legacy model of teaching students. So that's great. All right, thank you. All right, next, 9D, facility update. Mr. Riggin?
In time as well, we don't have an update on facilities. They will be meeting actually this Thursday and progressing in their process. At this stage, the facility committee is doing design and programs combined to think through what our Midland on the Move work looks like in regards to facility needs. And so they're embedded in that work, and we'll have a more robust update for you next board meeting.
Okay. All right, then we'll move to 9E, the SHAC report. Ms. Gonzalez, welcome.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having us. I am the outgoing chair of the SHAC, School Health Advisory Council, and this year our focus was on mental health. We had 4 subcommittees, one to look at crisis counselors, number 2 mindfulness, number 3 is recess and physical activity, and number 4 hydration. You all received our report and recommendations. We also heard from several, we also had several presentations from community groups who offer support to students locally. As far as the subcommittee recommendations, we said that we were going to continue to offer successful programs such as suicide prevention training programs for staff, students, parents, pregnancy prevention curriculum currently in use, and new recommendations that we made were to hire new and increase the number of crisis counselors to 12, to offer telemed.
I have
at
a
Texas
question
Tech.
on that one,
Yes.
on the first one. Where are we now with the, you said crisis counselors to 12?
We are, I believe, at 0 crisis counselors. We were down to 1, and now we have none. But we want some crisis counselors. We think it's important. The committee thought it was important. And I noticed they were not on the budget.
Okay, thank you.
And from what I understood, the last ones were funded by a grant, and the grant ran out. And so we need to see what we can do, whether that's grant funding or some of the surplus or something, to have some more crisis counselors in the schools. We think it's really important. We also voted, after a presentation from Texas Tech Health Science Centers on telemed for grades 9 through 12, to implement mindfulness classrooms curriculum in all K through 12 classrooms, counseling and PE programs, to add and increase access to reverse osmosis water at refill stations for all campuses. We understand some campuses have them and some campuses do not. They don't have access to good, clean drinking water unless they go buy it for $1.75 or $1 something in the vending machines. Like I said, my kid plays tennis. She goes through 2 bottles of water before she even starts school, and then she has no water if she doesn't take a whole bunch with her, which she has to carry around, because you can't drink from that drinking fountain. To hire additional RN nurses to provide staffing based on student needs, and to create a written recess policy that mandates a minimum number of minutes for elementary students. And with that, I'm going to cede my time to Summer Bellany, who was our chair for the recess committee.
A couple pieces of clarification. We did previously have crisis counselors that were privately funded, as well as general operational budget funded. 3 of those went back to the campus level, so they still have the mindset and practice of crisis counseling, and Mr. Moss can put them into practice and utilize them as needed. You heard previously with our bullying prevention committee that we have a crisis counselor, which is the one that we currently have in that role in the district. The others are campus-based counselors in their role. So we have one who actually carries the title of crisis counselor in the district, and she also serves on the bullying prevention committee. The crisis counselor piece is one that has been made, I believe, multiple years, and one of the things that we've done to address that this year is bring in behavior counselors to try to get to the root cause before it becomes a crisis, so that we can address that. So we have those 2 implementations in place. Mr. Riggins knows on the replacement of water fountains, and we do have one that goes out, that we do implement the RO water process, and we have that built in with a number of our fountains in the district. We have a team that goes around which does change the filters around that. We know that the city provides the water quality, and the water quality that comes to the building is one that is potable and you can drink. On the, there's one more update that I wanted to provide to you. I just lost it just a moment ago, but I'll let them move forward on their, on the telemed. We do have an opportunity to build a partnership with Texas Tech Health Services, in which there is a pilot program that's coming forward in regards to what that work looks like. The behavioral health leadership team that consists of a number of individuals from the community, in which Ron Moss, our director of counseling services, represents me with that, is working together to see what we might be able to do to bring that work and pilot it on several campuses in partnership with Texas Tech.
Just one other little comment about the crisis counselors. They were doing a lot of preventative stuff, parent education, and a lot of things around when we were having the suicide watches and suicide stuff. But it's my understanding there's no one doing that.
All right.
Hello, board members. Well, I'm really excited to be here tonight because I get to talk about everybody's favorite subject in school, and that's recess. I have the privilege and honor of sharing with you how hopscotch and monkey bars and good old-fashioned games such as jump rope and tag can help our kids do better in school, and this is really exciting. My name's Summer Bellany, and I'm a parent with 2 kids in MISD schools. I'm also a licensed teacher. I have 2 teaching credentials, in fact. One is in elementary education, and the other is in secondary social science content area. I've taught in public and private schools, elementary and middle school. I've also worked at 2 major universities and chaired a nonprofit children's foundation whose goal it was to enhance the lives of children in our community. So all this work has brought me to SHAC, and I'm excited to share with you our year's worth of work in as quick of a summary as I can. By our year's worth of work this year, I mean parents and community members who work together collaboratively with principals, teachers, and administrative staff at the district office. This was really exciting to have people coalesce around a common goal and determine how we can improve health and wellness for our students. So why SHAC? Well, SHAC is a unique group that's mandated by the TEA. Section 28 specifically asks SHAC to consider and make policy recommendations to the district concerning the importance of daily recess for elementary students. So we did what we were asked to do. We spent time researching expert recommendations and reading research. We also considered our community's values by creating a survey and asking for feedback. Tonight, I'm going to share with you a summary of our work that led us to a specific policy recommendation. First and foremost, the scientific evidence to support our work. Before I do that, though, I want to get to the punchline. The punchline is that our subcommittee is recommending that MISD creates a written recess policy that includes 30 to 60 minutes per day of recess for all elementary students. We're also recommending that recess not be withheld for punishment. Of the slides that I have, I'm going to spend most of my time on this one tonight. This is the meat of our research. We found that, by and large, experts agree that kids aged 6 to 17 get at least 60 minutes of physical activity per day. Some experts recommend more. So first, cognitive benefits, also sometimes referred to as academic benefits by school officials. There are numerous academic benefits to students when they get a break in their day. From studies and statements from the American Academy of Pediatrics, the Center for Disease Control, the Harvard Health Study, and many other credible sources that we've reviewed, we've learned that recess helps children improve their memory, lengthen their attention span, and increase their concentration. Studies indicate that test scores in reading and math also go up after children have recess breaks. Research supports that giving kids frequent breaks during the day and during and between highly focused cognitive and academic tasks, their performance would actually be better than those who don't have breaks. It seems simple. Students who don't get recess learn less efficiently. In other countries, such as Finland and Japan, schools have recognized that they've already recognized the positive effects of scheduling regular recess breaks in their day. So I'm here to share good news with you. We don't even have to travel to Japan or Finland. We're lucky. We have research coming out of TCU in Fort Worth, just a few hours drive from here. A professor there has been studying the benefits of recess and seen a lot of positive results. Her program is called Link Project, and it focuses on 4 15-minute recesses per day and includes a character education program that's school-wide. This could be considered a successful model to look into. Next, social and emotional benefits. There are also social and emotional benefits that are well documented for elementary students. Play is, as most of us know, nature's way of making sure that children acquire skills that they need to develop into adulthood. Increasing recess time allows kids to create games, navigate rules, share, cooperate, and practice communication and negotiation skills. If students need help with these skills, they're lucky because they have an educated, caring adult nearby to advise and facilitate or redirect them if needed. Moving on, our behavior benefits. We found in our research that kids who have recess regularly scheduled throughout their day have decreased incidence in behavior, negative behavior incidences throughout their day. They fidget less, they break less pencils, they fall out of chairs less, and overall, they have an increased positive attitude toward going to school every day. Teachers reported that they were worried at first about how they were going to teach their curriculum if they increased recess. But after some teachers implemented the LINK project, they realized it wasn't so much about how much they taught throughout the day, but rather the quality of learning that took place. So again, more good news to share right here in Midland. We had 3 teachers come to our SHAC meeting to share with us about how adding recess minutes to their classrooms this year improved their students' focus, quality, and work, and it helped with their behavior as well. In general, recess allows kids, including those considered hyperactive, to expend energy in a healthy manner. While outside, kids can be loud and messy. This is usually considered unacceptable inside. Kids need a chance to use their outside voice and move their big muscles if we want to ask them to behave and sit quietly inside. Combining physical and health benefits, it would go without saying that most kids playing at recess are likely outdoors and moving. Of course, some kids play harder than others and some move more, but most kids are standing up, walking, talking, socializing, or otherwise engaging in their choice-based activity. Research has shown to support an active lifestyle, reduce the likelihood of obesity and chronic disease in adulthood. It activates certain parts of the brain that support critical functions for kids to do better in school. It promotes stronger eye health, strengthens bones, and triggers the production of vitamin D, which can increase learning and productivity, just to name a few. I want to recognize that our committee talked about the value of PE. We recognize the difference between physical activity during recess during PE, and we value both. It's important to note here that we're asking for an increase in recess time that's separate and distinct from PE. We value what our PE program has to offer, and we don't want to change it. However, and this is a big however, we know that research shows that many kids actually get about 30% more moderate to vigorous activity during recess than during PE, as measured by a pedometer. And of course, PE is important because students learn specific valuable skills. They're introduced to structured games. They have to adhere to specific rules, be on teams, and can be exposed to winning and losing, all while having to use good sportsmanship. So we acknowledge the benefits of PE. However, PE is by nature under the direct supervision of an adult and instruction of an adult. It's usually inside a gym using a specific curriculum, and kids are by and large being told what to do and when to do it. Recess is the opposite. Recess is usually outside, and kids are free to choose their own games. Kids are free to leave these games if they want. They can form their own teams and socialize with whomever they want. The key with recess is that it's usually outdoors and unstructured. So that was a quick summary of a year's worth of research and reading experts' opinions. If you do a simple Google search, you will yield pages and pages of results. So please know that that is a quick summary. And we know that when we combine the physical and health benefits of recess with the academic and social benefits, it's clear to see why recess is an important part of a well-rounded education, a whole child elementary education program that should be separate and distinct from PE, and why SHAC is recommending that it be required in all schools every day. And we're going to get to our survey and look at that right now.
Let me ask you a question, if I may. I'm hearing it loud and clear, but one of my question is if I could maybe take advantage of the benefit of your review of all these studies. Is there a recommended length of school day at the elementary school age? Is there a consensus among these studies about what the length of the school day should be, in which you then have 30 to 60 minutes of recess?
There's not a recommended length. As I understand it, Texas has their own minimum 7 hours requirement law. So it's our understanding we can't change that. I also know from just personal experience in teaching in other states and just being informed, Texas has a long school day, and in fact, next year, our school day will be one of the longest that I'm personally aware of. Now, I haven't studied each state's laws and minimum requirements, but 7 hours and 35 minutes is almost the same as an adult workday. So we certainly thought about that and considered it, and that's why we've made such a strong recommendation that we have a minimum, because we're asking our youngest children, starting at age 5, to be in school almost the equivalent to an adult workday next year.
All right, thank you.
So here is our, we ran a community survey. I shared what our experts recommend. What do our parents want? Our survey ran in April of this year, 2018, and we received over 400 responses. We heard responses from 26 of our 27 elementary campuses and all responses from all grades K through 6. We also had almost equal responses from parents of each gender. We found that almost all schools do schedule recess each day. Approximately 3% said that their child's school doesn't schedule it. This is looking like good news. And 5% said, I don't know. On the surface, this is really good news. We had a strong response, and most parents said that their children have recess. So you might be wondering, why are we here tonight? Well, we want that number to be 100%, and we want the time scheduled to be significantly longer. We also want a written policy. This slide shows information that gives us a little greater insight into what recess looks like, who is getting recess, and how much the kids are getting, and how much is being taken away. First, we see that about half of the schools schedule 15 minutes of recess. Compared to schools across the country and the length of our school day, this is a very, very short recess. And when considering transition time, we know the actual playtime is even less than 15 minutes scheduled. We see from the survey that some schools give less and some schools give more. Currently, MISD has a recess policy gap, meaning we don't have a recess policy. And we're asking to close this gap by creating a recess policy. The unspoken, informal, verbal recommendation is that each school gives 15 minutes per day. This time, however, isn't required. There have been varying reasons stating as to why 15 minutes versus 20 or 30 or more, but as I understand it, it has something to do with teachers having 30 minutes for their lunch break, and they need to schedule the supervision adequately. So we aren't giving 15 minutes of recess because we know it's good for kids. We're giving it because we need to for logistics' sake, and we want a more thoughtful approach. But I have good news to share with you. This year, things have begun to change. After bringing this concern to the school districts, some principals, and teachers, we are excited to share with you that some grade levels at some schools have already begun to implement more recess, and they are loving it. We recommend that increasing recess time be district-wide. While leaving this decision up to each principal, because he or she knows the needs of their campus, may seem like the right thing to do, in this case, it isn't. We can't allow site-based decision-making to neglect the important benefits of recess, and we want all kids to have recess every day. Which brings me to an important factor in our survey. What we also learned is that 78% of parents reported that their schools withhold recess as punishment, with varying ranges anywhere from 5 minutes up to the entire recess. There are no guidelines for when a parent or when a teacher can withhold recess or how much time is withheld. The comments in the survey indicate varying reasons for withholding recess, whether it be from not getting a weekly homework folder sign to talking in class, or any number of classroom or cafeteria infractions. including withholding recess as whole class punishment. And here's an important piece. When we asked parents if they want their child to have more recess, 92% said yes. Can you imagine that 92% of adults agree on anything this day and age? In the comments, parents indicated in overwhelming numbers that they've read the research and that common sense tells us that giving kids more breaks outside and structured is good for them. And parents aren't asking for an indoor brain break from websites such as Go Noodle. Online sites ask kids to stand up behind their desk. Well, they're structured with the kids looking at a computer screen, being told when to move and how much to move, no doubt being controlled and programmed by an adult.
Question. Again, I want to take advantage of all the work you've done. Do the studies suggest an effective discipline measure to be taken in lieu of considering this as an alternative?
So that brings me to my next slide.
Okay.
Recess as discipline.
All right.
Speaking of withholding recess as discipline, you might imagine that we did research on that too. We found that there are a lot of other ideas for teaching kids appropriate behavior besides withholding recess. Now, I'm not going to get up here and pretend that I have all the answers, but I will tell you that there are ideas available online from professional groups and educational leaders as alternatives that seem worth exploring. I also know that typically the kids who get recess taken away are the kids who need to get out their energy the most. And the kids who get their recess taken away in May are also usually the same children who were getting it taken away in September. So we all know it's not a long-term strategy to change behavior. Experts recommend that withholding recess for punitive reasons might also be counterproductive in the long term.
I get that. I'm just wondering, are there any specific alternatives that they recommend instead of doing this?
I could give you a list. There's a list of about 60 that are online, and I don't have that list in front of me.
All right.
I've provided that to some district officials as well as some principals. It's a good question.
And you shared a number of links. It's among the links that you've provided to us in the SHAC report?
I would have to look. I have that paper here.
Okay.
I believe it is.
All right, thank you. Okay, thank you.
And this is my last or almost last slide, the role of equity. SHAC feels that recess is important for all children. Recess is equally important for 5th graders and 6th graders as it is for kindergartners. We know this. Recess is important for kids of all races, all ethnicities, all socioeconomic statuses. Recess is important for kids who have 2 parents at home or a single parent at home. The benefits of recess extend to all children, yet some children don't have a safe neighborhood park or a backyard to play in when they go home from school. Or maybe their family can't afford equipment and travel expenses for competitive sports. So what SHAC is recommending is that MISD create a recess policy district-wide so that all students may benefit, not just those who have parents that do this sort of research and present it to their schools and their teachers. All students deserve recess, and all students deserve access to a playground every day. In our research, we found that in general, and this is not specific to Midland, this is in general, lack of quality recess programs disproportionately affect poor and minority students. We know that we can't let that happen in our town. We know that we are one town, one dream. And we need a recess policy that guarantees a minimum number of minutes for all kids in our district every day. Sure, teachers can choose to add more minutes if they want. They can choose to use it for positive incentives or reward programs in their classrooms. They can have autonomy and decision-making in that regard. But the benefits are overwhelmingly in the kids' favor, and we can't allow a system of site-based decision to leave some kids out. Our research and community survey leads us to believe that all children deserve the right to play in a safe environment with a caring adult nearby and available to supervise and intervene if needed during the daylight hours. And so, we're recommending that the district create a written recess policy that requires a minimum of 30 to 60 minutes of recess per day for each child and not withhold it for punishment. We recommend that we let our children play regularly at school so that they may learn. Thank you.
Thank you. Very helpful, very informative. Any questions?
No, I just want to say that I'm very impressed with your report. So I'm hoping that through collaboration, we'll see what happens. But it's very impressive. So thank you.
Thank you.
Questions? All right, thank you very much. Appreciate all your good work. Thank you very much, and thank the committee for all of its work. All right. Next, 9F, staffing update. Mr. Bailey, welcome.
Good evening, board members. We have presented the staffing update for this month. Of course, this is the exciting time of the year. Things are moving. We provided information regarding current staffing trends at this point up through about the middle of May or the end of May, May 31st. At that point in time, of course, it changes every day. We receive resignations every day, and we continue to hire, and we'll continue to hire throughout the summer. Currently, we're about the report said 85% as of today, up to 86.5%, but that number will continue to change until the final day, or even after that, but the final day for resignation without penalty, which is July the 9th. So we just continue to bring these reports. As you can see, the information that is presented is the staffing and recruitment dashboard. It gives information regarding applicants, the number of applications that we are receiving each day, the source of those applications, as well as high need areas. There's also information that is a traffic report from our new Teach Midland website. And so all of this is, of course, in partnership, and these new metrics are provided in support through our partnership with external partners. So we're glad to present this report. It will continue to change over the next several months. We are definitely, as well as you read in the newspaper, we are below at that point in comparison to last year by about 30 resignations. So as we continue through the summer, we'll be able to bring a much more concise report in summary for where we are this year.
All right, any questions,
Questions,
Mr. Bailey, regarding the staffing update?
I do have a question, Mr. President. I guess one question, we do recruiting as far as when people leave, but have we taken the outlook or the thought of what we need to be doing to retain teachers? I know a lot of times there's frustrations that can be held at each campus. And maybe having some type of suggestion box at a campus to give a teacher an opportunity, anonymous or writing their name down, to put in that suggestion box on what we can do at our campuses to improve to retain teachers.
Thank you, Mr. Bishop, Trustee Bishop. We are definitely looking at retention. Retention is the only way that we're going to be able to meet the needs of our classrooms in the years to come, because we cannot recruit enough teachers every year and continue the revolving door. So we're going to do all that we can, and I believe that your suggestion is valid, and we will do something in that way as we build out our retention piece. Mr. Jones, you have something as well you may want to add. But we are looking at retention. We're looking at our total rewards package, making sure that our teachers feel valued. We're looking at benefits to make sure that we do believe that we have a great benefits package that will retain teachers, but we want to make sure that that is communicated well, and that teachers are well aware of all of the benefits that we have in the school district.
Not to put more emphasis on one and the other, but it is very, very important that we retain the teachers that we have. We have put a lot of investment and time and energy into building capacity in those teachers, but I just wanted to mention that we do have a process in place. All principals put out a feedback form 2 different forms they can choose from to all of their teachers, and teachers can provide feedback to campus principals. They can sign it or just turn it in anonymously with feedback on what things need to change at their particular campus.
Mr. Bishop, one of the things that we're looking at is we did a survey on 11 campuses, 12 campuses, I can't recall the exact number, where we took those teachers in that building to provide feedback in regards to culture and climate, so we can think through what are some things that we could do to address areas of concern that teachers could respond to anonymously. One of the things that we're looking at is across the district, what can we do to assess our organizational health, which is our culture and climate that sit at the campus, that may cause teachers to want to step away because it's not about benefits, it's not about pay, but it could be campus culture that could be a driver, and what are we doing to think through our organizational health on the campus work. So in our transformational zone implementation work, that's built in, and in our school performance framework, that's a measure that's built in, which is the campus survey. We're looking at what we can do from students, parents, as well as teachers assessing the culture and climate of a campus.
Okay, and maybe I missed some of it, but so when this information is gathered, building principal, what is being done with that information? Who is it being shared with or given to look at, other than
So
the campus
one of the
principal?
things we do when we do our climate survey, which we just did with K-12, a climate survey that gave teachers and parents an opportunity to assess the climate of a number of areas. We grab those and use, is there a trend that's running across the system to see if there's something district-wide that we need to begin in implementation? So is there a professional development that we need to think through or bring in or create and develop based on the characteristics of what we're seeing through the survey process? If it's individualized to a campus, those are conversations for the executive director as well as Mr. Jones, who oversees schools, to have those individual conversations with principals based on feedback that's coming, based on information on Likert scale of strongly agree or strongly disagree in regards to areas that are specific to the campus, to help principals assess what are things that they need to do to improve. Communication could be an instance, or whether it be celebrations. One of the things that we've done as we've gathered some of this information, for instance, we were at Travis Elementary having an open conversation with parents to talk to us about what are the things that we do well and what are the things that we need to work on. One of the aspects that came out were just celebrations. The campus, from the parent aspect, wanted to see more celebrations come forward and come through, which principals in the audience and gets feedback from Mr. Jones and the executive director on what can we do going to this next school year to think through that lens of when we have an opportunity, how do we allow kids to celebrate and become recognized, or how do we get more communication out so parents know that's occurring and can equate the two together?
The insight survey information has been very beneficial for us as a leadership team to work through the challenges and work through the successes of the campus, and so we work closely with them to ensure those things are embedded in their campus improvement plans.
All right, any other questions?
I have one more question. So my understanding here a while back was that we have a recruitment webpage now.
Yes, sir.
And how's that going? How's that?
The last page of the report, the information that we presented, it gives the traffic, and it actually also gives a nationwide map that shows where we're receiving visitors from. So all over the nation. There's also a combined social media platform or marketing platform that goes right along with our website. So Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn as well supports and directs visitors directly to the teachmidland.org website.
I learned a lot about social media last week myself.
I'm sure you did. Quite famous.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this topic? All right, Mr. Bailey, don't leave. Next, agenda item 10A, 2018-19 compensation plan. Information begins on page 357 of our board packet.
Board members, we are presenting, and Mr. Riddick, we're presenting the compensation plan that should be approved by the board annually. This is a guide for administering salaries and wages for teachers, administrative, professional, clerical, instructional, auxiliary, and substitute employees of the Midland Independent School District. The district maintains position classification and pay range structures for all jobs, and the compensation plan is for the 2018-2019 school year. Just to bring a couple of points as part of this compensation plan, it does, as was alluded to earlier in the presentation by Ms. Moss, it does include a $50,000 starting teaching salary that's recommended as part of this plan. It also includes a 2% gross percentage increase for all continuing teachers, which actually amounts to about $1,000 for each teacher, and a 2% gross percentage increase for all other groups. That's administrative, professional, clerical support, instructional support, and auxiliary support. I want to make another point that, as you notice through the pay plan, it definitely addresses some of our concerns. We can't get it all in 1 year, but as we continue to address compensation across the district, we hope that this gets us just a little bit closer. We did make one significant adjustment to the pay scale, and that was with our bus drivers, and that was they're in their own pay group now because, as recommended by TASB, we can adjust the bus driver pay as necessary without affecting all other employees if we can see that that might increase our recruitment of bus drivers and help in that way that we're so limited in the number of bus drivers that we have. So as across the plan, all employees are affected by this compensation plan, but we feel like it's definitely a step in the right direction.
In other words, although it may have been listed earlier as a board priority item to have a $50,000 starting salary for teachers, the impact of that had a domino effect of at every teaching level above the first year
Yes,
for a
sir.
raise.
Yes, sir. And adjustments were made within the scale from 0 to 40 years to ensure that it's equitable as much as possible throughout the 40-year scale. Now, there are some that are a little bit more compressed. It just happens you run out of dollars to try to get to 1,000. It doesn't quite work, but it's very close in all across from 0 years all the way to 40.
Mr. Bailey, this is HR question, not so much this compensation plan, but when we gave these teachers the raises, did we adjust any way in the premiums for their insurance that they would pay this year?
Good news is that with our new consultant, we are looking preliminary numbers, and it looks like the last year in 17-18, the district contributed $506.75 toward each employee. And our new consultant is recommending that, from preliminary numbers, that there will be a reduction on the district's contribution, and so that definitely, again, affects the bottom line. We're also looking at some structural issues within our benefits plan that we believe will realize some cost savings as well.
Very good, thank you.
You're saying that their insurance cost is going to be less?
So we are a district that pays 100% of the base coverage of every employee in the school district. That is not
for the employee.
For the employee only.
Not for
Not for a family, but for the employee only. 100% of the base coverage. That is not common for school districts, definitely in our area and across the state of Texas. When we go out to recruit, that's something that we make note of, and so that is highly unusual, but it's a selling point for Midland ISD. But when the district has to contribute $500 a month for each employee, that's a significant amount of money. We're looking at, based on last year's information and preliminary numbers, that the district will contribute less dollars this year towards the base coverage. It will still be $0 for the base plan, but then there's also a buy-up plan, and employees also add their family members as well.
Well, thank you for that work, for reducing that.
Well, the employees actually, they worked, and it's because of our claims and the work that they are doing. I mean, we can't take credit. We'd love to, but we can't take credit for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is an action item.
Mr. President, I recommend that we accept the compensation plan as presented.
So moved by Mr. Murray, second by Mr. Fuller. All those in favor, or any questions or comments? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. It's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bailey.
Thank you.
All right, next, 10B, 2017-2018 final budget amendment. The information begins on page 380 of our board packet. Ms. Moss, welcome back.
Thank you. We presented earlier in the financial update information on the 17-18 budget. The amendment that you see contains estimated expenditures for the month of June, as well as anticipated invoices on encumbered expenditures for June, and any June utilities that will be received in July for the fiscal year ending June 30th. Administration recommends approval of the final budget amendment for the 17-18 fiscal year.
Motion by Mr. Bishop, second by Mr. Kennedy. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. It's unanimous. Thank you. All right, next, 10C, our 2018-2019 operating budget. The information begins on page 383 of our board packet. This is a continuation of the presentation report earlier. Ms. Moss?
Okay, we actually presented that in the public hearing as well as the board workshops, all the information regarding the 18-19 budget adoption, and administration at this time recommends approval as presented for the 18-19 general fund, food service, and debt service fund budgets.
Motion by Mr. Bishop, second by Mr. Kennedy. Any questions or comments? Thank you for all your hard work. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Unanimous. Thank you. All right, it is 7:43 p.m. and we will go into closed session in accordance with Government Code Sections 55.001, .071 through .074, .076, .0821, .082 through .084. Thank you very much. 7:44. It is 10:45 p.m. and our emerging closed session. The first item to be addressed is agenda item 12A or denial of parent-student grievance level 3.
I move that we deny the grievance and uphold the decision of the administration at level 2.
I second it.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, second by Mr. Marquez. I would note that I would speak in favor of the motion. I believe the board has carefully reviewed among other things, that which we are being asked to judge the appeal of, and that is Diane Lopez's letter dated April 27th, 2018, specifically and particularly the summary of her investigation, which appears halfway down the page on page 3, continues on page 4, and then concludes with her summary of her findings and her decision on page 5. I believe that she made the right decision, and that's the reason to uphold the decision. And if, however, whether this motion passes or fails, I do want to make note that I am voting in favor of the motion, but I'm going to make sure that the things that the Linscomb sought to be addressed by the committee, I will personally forward those to the committee to make sure that they know that the board would like them to consider these, seriously consider these, and if it's the committee's desire to make those recommendations, that they should do so. It'll be their decision to make their report, but I'm going to make sure that Ms. Linscomb's list that she provided to us is forwarded to that committee, and I'm going to do it myself for their consideration. Any other discussion or comments? All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. It's unanimous. Thank you. The remaining agenda item for tonight's meeting is item 12B, City of Midland easement request. Information is on page 480 of our board packet. All right, please present them separately. We'll take them up separately.
The first item is consider an easement request from the city of Midland. The first item is to consider a easement from Midland ISD for property that MISD owns in West Midland, 124 acres, located in West Midland at the future intersection of Thomason Drive and Avalon Road. The city wants to dedicate 60 foot of right-of-way along each one of these roads for future roadway construction. I recommend approval of this requested city easement.
I move.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Marquez, a second by Mr. Murray. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. It's unanimous. Thank you. All right.
The second easement that is requested by the city of Midland is at the MISD Transportation Complex located on Briarwood Avenue. The city is asking for improvements that they are making along Briarwood for a approximately 60-foot by 407-foot drainage easement for a natural stormwater easement on our property. This is a natural playa lake, and we recommend approval of this motion.
I move.
Motion by Mr. Marquez, second by Mr. Kennedy. Any questions or comments? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. It's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Riggin, thanks for all your work in those regards. All right, it is 10:50 p.m. and we are now adjourned. Thank you.